City of Stevens Point Plan Commission meeting, recorded December 7, 2020.
Okay, I have 6 o'clock and I will call the regular City Plan Commission meeting to order. Director or Adam, could you please give me a roll call?
Weeza.
Here.
Kneebone.
Here.
Arnson.
Here.
Cooper.
Here.
Haynes.
Here.
Hoppy.
Here.
Rice.
Here.
7-0.
Good. We have the full body here tonight. So we will move on to our agenda. Item number 2 is a report of the November 6th Special City Plan Commission meeting. Those minutes and actions were included in your packet, commissioners. What are your wishes?
Mr. Mayor, this is Cooper. I'll move approval of the minutes as presented.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hoppy, I'll second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion there? Corrections, clarifications? Hearing none. Commissioners, please unmute yourselves. And I'll call a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 2 is a public hearing and subsequent action on a request from Mark Irwin for a conditional use permit to construct multiple storage buildings consistent with chapter 23.01 sub 13 sub F and 23.02 sub 4 sub E sub 3.4 sub 1 at an unaddressed parcel on Heffron Street with parcel identified there. Adam, did you want to go over anything before we open up the public hearing?
Sure, absolutely. So as the mayor addressed, this request is to construct 4 self-service storage buildings on an unaddressed lot on Heffron Street, which is located more on the southern half of the city industrial park. Now, this proposed development will include 49 storage units in total and encompass just shy of 11,000 square feet. Now, this is going to be a multi-phase approach, and it's expected to take about 3 to 5 years from beginning to end. And I'll show you a little bit down the road as far as what's going to be the game path for when each storage building is going to be developed. So self-service storage is a permitted use within the M1 Light Industrial District, the zoning district for which this lot falls under. However, there's 2 reasons for why a conditional use permit is needed. First is because this lot is located within the Wellhead Protection Overlay District B. Now, while self-service storage is not a permitted use within the Wellhead Protection B district, since it is permitted within the underlying zoning district, the M1 Light Industrial District, it is considered a conditional use, which would be subject to the review and approval by this body tonight. Now, secondly, another reason why a conditional use permit is needed is because there's more than one principal structure on this one lot, vis-a-vis more than one self-service storage building on the lot. And then here to show us a proposed concept plan for this lot. You can see here the storage buildings highlighted running along the perimeter of the building, and then this one self-service storage building located in the interior in the middle of it. You have these yellow dots indicating the proposed lighting that's going to take place on the lot. This red square area is going to be proposed parking. Now, the applicant did originally include 2 parking stalls, one regular parking stall and one handicap accessible stall. Now, since there's less than 4 parking stalls that's required per zoning code standards, there's no need to include an ADA accessible parking stall. Next, the applicant did designate certain areas for snow removal, for landscaping, and likewise for stormwater management locations. Now here, as I addressed earlier, are the proposed phases. You can see here, phase 1 is proposed to be this building on the far northwest corner of the lot, then working around the horn along the perimeter of the lot, with the final phase culminating in this interior self-service storage building. Now next, you can see both the current zoning code, zoning district that this lot falls under. You can see it falls in the M1 Light Industrial District. And then likewise within our future land use map within the city's comprehensive plan, it does designate this area within the business industrial park district. So it would satisfy both the needs within the zoning district and for the future land use as well. Now, overall, staff does recommend approval of this request subject to the conditions below. Now, there are a couple things that stand out. Most of these conditions are pretty self-explanatory, pretty standard for any type of conditional use like this. One that I should address a little bit further is the stormwater management plan, submitting a stormwater management plan for the utilities department to review. Now, myself, a member of the utilities department, and the applicant did meet on site about 2 weeks or so. Now, we did have a good discussion as far as what are some of the stormwater management facilities, techniques that would be needed for this lot, given the amount of building square footage that's going to be proposed on this lot. And we do have a working understanding right now, but obviously that'll be subject to having these plans put on paper and then subsequently having the utilities department review. So with that, I can take any of your questions.
Okay, do any of the commissioners have any clarifying questions before I open up the public hearing? Okay, seeing none at that point, I will declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to offer testimony on this request is urged to identify yourself and provide that testimony.
Yeah, hi, Charles Gladowski here,
Yes, sir, go ahead.
adjacent landowner. So, yeah, the plan looks pretty good. I was just curious, do they plan to put asphalt in or just a gravel driveway? And this is a storage unit, so a lot of people will be coming into that area that normally wouldn't be. So how are they protecting the adjacent landowners? Are they putting fencing up around it? We're next to a city park. I've never had any issues with people in my backyard before, but now with 49 units right behind me, that's 49 additional vehicles plus that'll be going through that area that have not in the past. So just kind of curious.
Yep, we'll make note of that and get your questions answered after the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Public hearing remains open. Public hearing is still open.
This is Alder Slowinski.
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to, this isn't being that this is in my district. The applicant did reach out to me and I reviewed this and I am in support as long as the, the lighting stays within the property and it doesn't affect any of the adjacent property owners, especially to the south. And also, I would be, as long as this meets all the requirements for the wellhead protection area. So again, this is my district. I support it. I have not heard any constituents in my district to reach out to me with any concerns. So I encourage the commission to approve. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderperson. And since the public hearing is still open, I did get an email from the applicant. It says, unfortunately, due to work schedules, we will not be able to join you for the meeting December 7th. The following is a requested statement. Regarding the proposed project, we look forward to continuing to work with your office to ensure all is in order. Thanks to Adam Kuhn and Eric Southworth for taking the time to meet with us 2 weeks ago at the land to walk through and talk through the project development. We have completed multiple successful building development projects within the city in the past and are familiar with the process to bring projects to a favorable end to fit in the city's development plan. Thank you for your time, Mark and Bobby Irwin. So with that, the public hearing is still open. Public hearing remains open. And for the third time, the public hearing is open. Seeing no other indications of someone wishing to speak, I will declare the public hearing closed and bring it back to the commissioners for consideration. Commissioners. Commissioner Artson.
Yeah, I have a question about the stormwater issue, and the lot is currently undeveloped, correct? And it looks like the final plan is for it to be pretty much mostly impervious. That's a lot of water to manage. I'm sure it can be done, but I would, I guess I'd emphasize that that needs to be looked at, and Adam commented on it, and that's, that seems to be a challenge to me.
And I wouldn't disagree with you, Commissioner. However, Adam was out there with Eric Southworth from our water department. I have every confidence that if Eric is okay with the plan, that it will be a suitable plan.
Sure, and if I could expand a little bit further,
Absolutely, and then if you also have information on this regarding Mr. Gladusky's questions regarding asphalting and if there's going to be any fencing.
Sure, absolutely. So the first question with the asphalt, so it will be paved with asphalt. Second of all, with the fencing and the perimeter landscaping, so that will be subject to review upon the landscaping plan being submitted to our office. Now, one of the things that I did discuss with the applicant is having some sort of landscaping buffering on this far southeast corner of the lot, since it's directly abuts the park located right on the southern, the southeastern portion of the property here. So that would be one point of emphasis, is making sure that there is appropriate landscaping here, and then in addition to the proposed landscaping areas that the applicant has in the northern half of this lot here. So in regards to the stormwater management, just to expel a little bit further from our discussion a few weeks ago. So upon myself, Eric, and the applicant, so there are proposed to be swales located on the western side of the lot, on the southern portion of the lot, and then also on the eastern portion of the lot as well. Now, of course, the depth of these swales will depend on once a stormwater plan is submitted, but that's the overall intent, the overall expectation as far as stormwater facilities is concerned, is that there will be swales along the perimeter of the lot to help coincide and help manage any expected stormwater flow that would take place.
Okay.
I'd like to chime in again, Commissioner Arnson here. It's in the wellhead protection area. You're going from natural vegetation to a lot of impervious. You're dealing with different water quality in the recharge. There again, it's not just a quantity issue, which I see as big, but also a quality issue. You're looking at bioswales or something of the sort. I think that should also be a part of the consideration. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. And as you know, we value your opinion, being the water quality expert that you are. I would encourage you, if you have any concerns, Commissioner, contact Eric at the water department, or Adam can put you in touch with them as well. But as I said, I have every confidence in our water department staff that they are going to make sure this was not adversely affecting not only the neighboring properties, but our wellheads.
And do we have any plans yet regarding the stormwater treatment plans?
Any stormwater management plans now, no, but that is a condition of approval.
Right.
So the plans are conditional of approval by you, but not by us.
So as a condition of approval by this commission, the applicant would be required to submit a stormwater management plan that would be subject to review from Eric and other folks within the utilities department, and would coincide with the comments that this commission makes as far as, the bioswales, any specific type of landscaping that would be most appropriate for the region, that would help manage any stormwater concerns as well.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
Yes, well enough for now.
So while the commission itself would not have any oversight over the stormwater plan, I understand that that's your wheelhouse, not mine. I doubt it's Commissioner Haynes or the other commissioners, but our staff at the water department, that's their job. They would have to approve that stormwater plan, and I would look forward to any input that you might be able to provide, Eric or Adam, in that regard if you have concerns.
Great, thanks. I just might do that.
I hope so. Any other comments from the commissioners? Or a motion?
Mayor Alder Kneebone here. Kind of touching on what Commissioner Arnson was saying, I don't have an issue with this particular project at all, but it seems to me that there's an overarching question of what's appropriate in a wellhead protection area. How are we protecting parts of the city that we perhaps shouldn't develop on? And I know it doesn't apply here, but that's a question that this kind of brings up for when we do our zoning reviews and things like that, zoning updates. So
Absolutely, Alderperson. And I can tell you that in my time on council, we've approved things that you wouldn't normally expect, especially in a wellhead protection zone. However, we have, as a body, implemented conditions that were restrictive enough where the body felt comfortable doing it in regards to containment systems and spill abatement, those sorts of things. So we actually have gas stations within a wellhead protection zone with lots of restrictions. So yeah, absolutely. That's something we should always be aware of as our water quality is very critical. We can't fix it if it goes bad.
So, and this is Commissioner Haynes. Just one, hopefully little question. Well, one, might be useful if you would included a map of the wellhead district in this.
Okay.
But I see that there's no address and I couldn't see a cross street. So I'm not even like exactly positive where this is.
So this is kind of out in our industrial park. Adam, do you have maybe the GIS or something that you could bring up showing a larger picture? I know we won't have the wellhead protection overlay. It's a bit of a distance from our wellheads. However, I mean, the zone for a wellhead protection area is usually quite a ways.
Well, I think it would be helpful just in the future because I often like to drive by something and it just wasn't obvious to me how I would do a drive-by. So anyway.
All right, so if you look at the screen now, Commissioner, you can see the area. Does that help a little bit?
Yes, thank you.
We will absolutely make a note that in the future, if it's an unaddressed parcel, we will include an aerial map so commissioners or any member of the public for that matter can get a better idea of where exactly the parcel is located. So in the future, we will include a larger map like this.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions, commissioners?
Well, I got another one. This is Commissioner Arnson, and that I don't recall. Is this in the Plover Wellhead Protection District? Again, I did some thesis work down there, and I don't recall that where their wells are.
Yeah, Adam, would you happen to know that? Because I don't think it's close to any of the Plover wells.
They went way south, but I thought at the time there were locations.
I could answer that.
Director Konowski?
Yeah, as a former village employee, most of their wellhead protection is actually on the east side of US 51, as two of their wells are either adjacent to 251 or east of 51. This would fall within one of the city's wellhead protection zones, not the village of Plovers. And I would state too, mini storage or self-storage facilities are probably one of the more safe uses that you can have in a wellhead protection. There's no underground storage tanks. The actual items that are typically stored in these units are more household based. And so you don't have what I would consider to be extensive contamination possibilities from the users of the storage units themselves. Because the city's water department and utilities department have reviewed this and have signed off on it, they also have expressed no significant concern with having this within the wellhead protection district as well. So would add that.
And I might have added not just Plover, but Whiting is maybe more relevant. But I assume that's good.
Whiting's quite a bit further away as well.
Good, thanks.
Adam, if you could make a note and contact, this is just a sidebar, contact someone at the water department and get all of the commissioners a copy of a map with the wellheads in it and the wellhead protection zones, please.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions, commissioners, or a motion?
Actually, Mayor Alder Kneebone, I have one more quick one. the landscaping plan, I would like to make sure that there's going to be enough of a vegetative barrier to protect the property owners to the south. So when the landscaping plan comes for review, make sure that that gets looked at carefully. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. And I see our associate planner making notes. So that will be involved in the final landscaping approval plan. Any
Yeah,
other
typically
comments,
what we would like to see is like an arborvitae 5 foot on center. That's pretty common for if you want that vegetative screening.
Thank you.
If I could comment on that, I'd be careful with the arborvitae. Do they do well in sandy soils? That can be a little bit tough because they tend to be dry, and arborvitae likes moisture habitats. So that's a consideration.
We will definitely make sure that our arborist gets involved in the landscaping to make sure that the vegetation is appropriate. Adam, please make a note of that.
With that, I make a motion to approve per staff recommendations.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Haynes will approve, or second,
Haynes,
whatever.
second. Any further discussion, commissioners? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 4 is a public hearing and subsequent action on a request from Jeff Disher, representing Disher Properties LLC, to rezone a property at 4912 County Road Double H from B1 neighborhood business to B4 commercial. Associate Planner Kuhn.
Sure, absolutely. So as the mayor just alluded to, the applicant is proposing to construct an approximate 1,200 square foot office addition onto an existing office and storage building. The property is currently zoned B1 neighborhood business, and staff would consider this use, the use of electrical contracting offices, to be considered a legal non-conforming use. And what this means is that the use was operated prior to the specific zoning standards saying that electrical contracting offices is neither a permitted nor a conditional use in the B1 district. Now, however, if there's any addition, alteration, etc., that would take place on this existing legal non-conforming use, it would require said use to be brought back up to conformity. Whereas if with this proposal to expand the existing use on the lot vis-a-vis the electrical contracting office, it would require compliance back up to current zoning code standards. And current zoning code standards state that electrical contracting office is a permitted use starting in the B4 commercial district. So to give a little overview on the proposed concept plan, the proposed site plan rather, that the applicant submitted, you can see here is the existing building showing the office space and the contractor storage. Here is the location of the proposed office addition. And then these two buildings are existing self-service storage buildings, and there are not any proposals at all to expand or whatnot these existing uses. So as far as the zoning code, transferring the zoning code from, or rather, rezoning this lot rather to B4, there's a couple standards of review that need to take place to determine whether or not that's appropriate. Now, first off is making sure that all applicable performance standards are met within the B4 district. So the lot area, the lot width are all met. Now, setback standards does deserve a little bit more of a discussion. So as you can see here, with this lot being on a corner of two right-of-ways, Olympia Avenue and County Road HH, there are some, our zoning code does allow a little bit of flexibility for the property owner and stating that they have the option of choosing which property line, which frontage street to count as their front yard and which to count as their side yard. Now, in this case, as we show here, the street yard setback rather, 25 feet, and then the side yard setback a minimum of 5 feet. So with this, with 25 feet being the front yard setback that's proposed, the county highway HH will be considered the front yard setback. Side yard setback will be the property line along Olympia Avenue. And all the applicable setback standards are met with the proposed addition and also with the existing buildings on the lot. Now, next, it's important to talk about the intent of the B4 district. Now, the intent, as you can see on your screen, is in part to provide office use, which electrical contracting offices would provide such a use. Now, secondly, these uses, in part, again, office, should be located on a street that has good accessibility. Now, having it being located off of County Road HH, a 4-lane highway with a good accessibility, staff feels that the intent of the B4 district is met within this proposal. And then lastly, the future land use map is important as well. And if our future land use map does designate this area for commercial and office use in the future. So that, what I just talked about before, was for the rezoning request. So I'll be happy to take any questions as far as the rezoning request before this commission tonight.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions from any of the commissioners before we move on to the public hearing? Okay, then I will declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to offer testimony on the request for the rezoning is urged to unmute yourself and state your name for the record, please.
Yes, this is Cindy Nabel, District 3. I've just got a question, and that is about the safety of this being on a corner lot so close to both roads of visibility. That's only my main question, because you're going to have it with traffic on there coming off of Olympia. I would think it might be hard to see. I'm just, that's all my concern is. If you can tell me that's not a problem, then I'm okay.
Thank you, and we'll get to that after the public hearing, Alderperson.
Correct.
But there's an existing building in the furthest south area anyway, so I don't know that this would provide any more obstruction, but we'll touch on that after the public hearing.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify during the public hearing? It remains open.
This is Alder Slowinski. Again, this is my district. I have been contacted by the applicant. I reviewed this request, and I again support it. And I have not heard any opposition from any of my constituency regarding this. So I encourage the commission to approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderperson. Public hearing remains open. Public hearing is still open. And for the third time, the public hearing is open. Seeing no one else wishing to speak during the public hearing, I will declare that closed. Adam, I'd like you to talk about any potential vision obstructions in regards to traffic, either on Double H or Olympia or whatever the road is going to the to Ascension.
Sure, absolutely. So in short, staff doesn't have any reservations as far as the accessibility off of the property onto Olympia Avenue, and then likewise from Olympia Avenue to County Road HH. So to talk a little bit about the visibility standpoint, now that's part of the reason for why, in this case, a 25-foot front yard setback is required, not only to establish the vision and the feel of and the layout of respective buildings along County Road HH, but also indirectly, it has a benefit from a visibility standpoint in that if the edge of the building is going to end here, you have all the space, for example, if any folks are going to be wanting to turn left or right to turn off of Olympia Avenue and onto County Road HH. Another thing as far as traffic flow onto Olympia Ave and County Road HH as well is a benefit here is that the driveway, at least as of now, my discussions with the applicant, there's no intention for the driveway to be altered at all. And the driveway, existing driveway ends about here. I don't have the approximate distance offhand off of me right now as far as the distance from the driveway to where the intersection is, but staff does feel that there's appropriate length distance here so that if there are multiple cars, for example, who would be leaving out of Disher or the hospital over here, that there would be sufficient distance that wouldn't create any sort of traffic backup on Olympia Avenue at all.
Yeah, and the hospital also has an entrance off of Hoover.
Correct.
So
Alder, just to add a little bit more to that as well, we do have clear view requirements. So there are what are more commonly known as vision triangles.
Right.
And both the existing sign and the proposed building that are close to that intersection are way outside of the vision triangle. So staff has no concerns with any type of traffic issues there.
Perfect. Thank you very much, both of you, for answering my question.
Thank you. Commissioners, what are your wishes here?
Commissioner Hoppy, I'd move approval with staff recommendations.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Kneebone will second.
1 second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the rezoning signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 5 is a public hearing and subsequent action on a request from Jeff Disher representing Disher Properties for a conditional use permit to construct an office addition consistent with Chapter 23.01 sub 13 sub F and Chapter 23.02 sub 2 sub D sub 3 sub I at 4912 County Road Double H, the one that we just approved rezoning for. Adam, would you like to give us an overview here?
Sure, absolutely. So with the approval of the rezoning request rather taking place, a conditional use permit is needed also for 2 primary reasons. The first of which coincides with the building where the office space and the contractor storage is located. And since the proposed building is expected to increase about 2-fold, also the size and the scale of the office space and the contractor storage is proposed to be expanded as well. And with this case, contractor storage is considered a conditional use within the B4 district as well, which would thus require a conditional use permit as well. Now, secondly, and this stems off of the first example as well, since these 2 uses, since the office use was a legal non-conforming use as well prior to this rezoning request, the request to rezone this property and expand the existing size and scale of electrical contracting office use would require a conditional use permit due to having more than one principal use on this one lot. And 2 principal uses are the electrical contracting offices and then the self-service storage buildings on the northern half of the lot. Now, like I said, the self-service storage buildings, those 2 buildings are not proposed to change at all. The fact of the matter is that since the electrical contracting office use is proposed to be changing, that would thus be out of this legal non-conforming status and would require a conditional use permit as well. So again, this is a proposed site plan. Now showing some of the specifics of the request. Here you can see some of the designs of some of the architectural appeals of this proposed building. You can see that the building here is proposed to be pretty similar to what the existing building facade is today. Now you can see here on this image on the right-hand portion of your screen is the exterior facade of the building on the south facing along County Highway HH. Now here is proposed to have more of a storefront, more of a window view than the eastern side, which is more, I don't believe there's any windows rather offhand. So in short, staff does recommend approval of this conditional use request subject to the conditions shown on the screen. First of which is that there has to be at least a minimum 11 parking stalls provided on the lot in order to meet specific required parking stall design, in order to meet parking requirements outlined within our city zoning code, and also having 1 ADA parking stall in order to meet applicable ADA requirements as well. Then again, the rest of the conditions shown here on your screen are pretty self-explanatory, pretty similar for any type of conditional use request, having a stormwater management plan, submitting the landscaping plan. Any future additions or alterations to the property would have to meet existing zoning code standards at the time that request was submitted, and then obtaining applicable building and erosion control permits as well. So with that, I can take any of your questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, any clarifying questions before I open up the public hearing? Okay, public hearing is open. Anyone wishing to offer testimony, please do so now. Public hearing remains open. And for the third and final time, the public hearing is open. Seeing no one wishing to speak, I will declare the public hearing closed and bring it back to the commissioners. Commissioner Hoppy, I saw you took yourself off of mute. Did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I know we talk a ton about parking. Just with standard one, are they adding any stalls or are they just maintaining kind of what they have there?
So there are existing stalls located on the lot, but with this office use expanding about twofold, it would require additional parking stalls to meet existing zoning code requirements. And that would be subject, and I know actually later on this afternoon, the applicant did submit a rough idea of where these additional parking stalls are proposed to be located. So that's something that I'll be working with the applicant in the next few days and weeks to make sure that these parking stall standards are met.
Okay, I know we talked about that a lot, and the driveway is not changing, so not a big concern. So.
Good, thank you. No, I can tell you that our staff in economic development works very diligently with any of the applicants and our direction in regards to the zoning code and ordinances that we have put in place to make sure that they comply. And if they don't meet the standards or we can't find some solution, they will not get a favorable recommendation from our community development department. Any other questions, commissioners? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Commissioner Hoppy, I'd move approval with staff recommendations.
Motion by Hoppy. Cooper, is that a second?
Yes, sir.
Seconded by Cooper. Any discussion? Hearing none. I'm sorry, was there some discussion needed? Nope, okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is by unanimous consent approved. Item number 6 is a public hearing with subsequent action on a request from William Yutchitz for a conditional use permit to construct a storage facility consistent with chapter 23.01 sub 13 sub F at 1309 Dubay Avenue with the parcel identified in the agenda. Adam, you want to give us an overview here?
Absolutely. So as the mayor alluded to, the applicant is requesting to construct a 2,120 square foot storage facility that's intended to be utilized for retail use. Now, storage operations are considered a permitted use within the M1 Light Industrial District, again, the zoning district for which this property falls under. Now, 3 buildings currently exist on the property, which I'll show in the subsequent slides. Now, 2 of these buildings are utilized for both storage and warehousing purposes, whereas the 3rd building is used in part for office use as well. Now, in this case, having more than one primary building or use on this one lot, in this case, the storage and warehouse purposes, the office use, that would require a conditional use permit subject to the review and approval of this commission. Now, to give an overview of the proposed site plan, so you can see here are the two parcels, both owned by the applicant here. This is the property that would fall under the review of this commission tonight. So here is these 3 buildings are the existing buildings on the lot. Here is the office and the workshop unit. And then these 2 buildings are utilized for storage purposes as well. Now, this building is a proposed storage building. And this darker hashed off area is going to be proposed to be expanded driveway and parking area as well to accommodate the retail storage use. And then likewise here, this would be the 2nd driveway that would be included as a result of this request. So then next, the top of this slide here shows more of a ground level view of what the proposed building is to look like. You can see here there's one larger overhead storage unit followed by 4 similar size storage units as well. And then likewise, as I alluded to before, this property located right here is zoned M1 light industrial, which does classify self-service storage as a permitted use as well. Now, overall, staff does recommend approval of this conditional use request subject to the conditions shown on your screen. The first of which is to propose is to submit a stormwater management plan to determine whether the proposed stormwater retention area shown here on the southeast corner of your screen would satisfy any additional runoff that's expected with this proposed building. And then secondly, if there are additional stormwater facilities needed, that would be something that the utilities department would want to take a look at and make sure that if any additional stormwater facilities are needed, that again, it would meet any expected runoff that would come as a result of this proposed building. And then secondly, that the applicant should enter into an agreement or memorandum of understanding that no additional buildings should be constructed on the property without the extension of fire protection vis-a-vis hydrants or proper fire suppression systems being installed consistent with fire department and community development department approval. Now, this is in regards to that there are no fire hydrants located on this parcel or on the adjacent parcel, the nearest ones being the apartment complexes located east of this, and then there are hydrants located on the southern side of I-39 as well. So this condition states that if any future buildings are proposed to be constructed on this lot, that based off of this agreement or memorandum of understanding, that fire protection or fire suppression systems would be needed to complement any additional buildings that would potentially occur on this lot. And then, like I said, the remaining standards, making sure that the proposed driveway meets applicable zoning and public works right-of-way standards are met, and then any building permits should be applied and obtained for. And with that, I can take any of your questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the commissioner? Commissioner Arson?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it, but I'm unmuting. That's a good question, a good point. There are a number of buildings there, and the nearest fire hydrant is off to the east a ways, and I wouldn't count the one south of I-39. Is that a concern for the fire department, I guess? Is this a case of if they start burning, they're going to burn?
I can speak to that, Commissioner. Every structure fire that we have within the city of Stevens Point has...
You're breaking up on me, Mayor.
What's that?
You're breaking up on me. You're...
Hardly hear you, Mayor.
Okay.
Give it a try now.
How about that one?
That's good.
Better?
Yes, that works, Mayor.
All right. So again, any structure fire within the city has automatic mutual aid, which means that the town of Hull and surrounding municipalities automatically send their units. And then if we get there first and we figure we can handle it, we call them off. So in this case, it's relatively close to the town of Hull. So it's on the northern fringe, I guess, if you will, of the city. I have heard of no issues or concerns with the fire department. We have 2 units that between the 2 of them hold about 1,000 gallons of water. And then the town of Hull have tanker trucks that hold significantly more. So I believe that the fire department would be okay with this as is. However, anything additional would require some additional fire suppression, in this case, running water out to the property and putting in hydrants.
Yeah, this has been a topic of great conversation with the fire department. As Adam alluded to earlier, the nearest hydrant is east of this property along Dubay, near Harmony Village. There are long-term plans to bring the water further down Dubay and do what's considered a looping connection, connect up to where 2nd Street near I-39 is. That actually helps with water flow and pressure systems. But because that's a number of years out, there is a concern that if there's a structure fire on this property, the fire department can show up, but without a tanker truck, they would have a hard time extinguishing the fire in a quick manner. And so that was something that we talked about with Chief Finn, Assistant Chief Moody, and Gemza, and Fire Marshal Egan as well. And so they've reviewed the document, they've reviewed the language that staff included as part of the conditions, and they were very supportive of that.
Any other comments before I open the public hearing? Okay, we will now open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to offer testimony on this request, please identify yourself and provide that testimony. Public hearing remains open.
This is Sean Morrow. I'm the alder for the area.
Yes, sir.
I've talked to William about this. I've also reviewed his plan. He is kind of an oasis of point surrounded by all out there. Really, there's really no other buildings around him, and I mean, he's been working with the city on this, and I haven't gotten any calls for anyone who has any concerns about this. I would urge to have this also approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderperson, and I agree with you. Revelations Architecture and Mr. Yachich have been a longstanding contributor to the community. Public hearing remains open. Public hearing is still open. And for the third and final time, the public hearing remains open. Seeing no one else wishing to provide testimony, I will declare the public hearing closed and bring it back to the commissioners.
Mayor, there was one written testimony.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know, you're right. Do you have that in front of you? Because I forgot to print it out.
I do. Do you want me to read it?
Please.
This was sent in by Richard Lilla at W8795 Niblick Road in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. He writes, this email is a follow-up to our conversation. It was addressed to Planner Kuhn on December 3rd about a plan commission hearing scheduled for December 2nd about the William Yachich property at 1309 Dubay Avenue, Stevens Point. I'm writing on behalf of my mother, Gladys Lilla, for which I'm the power of attorney. Our concern stems from the newly placed property boundary stakes between her property and the property of Mr. Yachich. My parents went to court in the early 70s over that boundary and won their case in court. At that time, the adjacent property was owned by a Mr. Zinoff. The newly placed property boundary stakes appear to put the contested property back to Mr. Yachich. We would wish to dispute the location of those stakes. Thank you. That was an additional testimony that was received.
Thank you. Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't think it applies to the conditional use permit. That would be a
Correct.
dispute potentially between property owners because of the land line or the survey line boundaries.
Correct. Yeah, that wouldn't be anything that we could address within the conditional use. Typically, when there's boundary disputes, we advise residents or anyone else that that's a civil matter that they need to take up with their adjacent property owner.
That is correct. Okay. One last time before we officially close the public hearing. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and we will bring it back to the commissioners. Commissioners, what are your wishes?
Mr. Mayor, this is Cooper. I would move approval of the request with the staff recommended conditions.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Kneebone will second.
Okay. That's okay. I'd rather have more than less. Kneebone gets a second on that one. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval with conditions recommended by staff signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? With that, unanimous consent, the request is approved. Item number 7 is a request from Holy Spirit Parish for a sign variance to construct a second freestanding sign at 838 Fremont Street with the parcel identified in your agenda. Adam?
Yeah, so with this request of seeking a sign variance rather to construct the second freestanding sign, there are some added nuance. I'll just jump to the next slide, a few slides from now. So here is the location of the existing sign located on the far southeastern corner of the property. And this shows more of an identification sign showing the name of the parish, Holy Spirit Catholic Parish, and then any applicable times and dates for when Mass would take place, for example. Now here is the proposed location for the second freestanding sign located about halfway along the interior of the lot along Reserve Street. Now to talk more about a general overview. So this property is zoned R2 single family residential. Now, while most sign code requirements within the R2 district are pretty restrictive, for example, having a maximum 4 square foot area for any signs for residential use, any non-residential institutional uses, for example, churches, cemeteries, schools, things like that, they do have more deviations in terms of how large any proposed sign is, wall sign and freestanding signs can be. So for this case, any proposed freestanding sign can be no greater than 20 square feet in size and then no greater than 5 feet in height. And this proposed sign does meet that to the T, 5 feet in height and 20 square feet in area. And then, like I said, only one freestanding sign is allowed, even for non-residential uses within the R2 district, thus requiring sign variance tonight. So here's the proposed renderings of this sign. So this actually is updated slightly. I received this from the applicant, I believe, earlier this weekend or on Friday, just showing the only difference here is the change for the Holy Spirit Parish logos. Otherwise, the signage, the height, things like that has not changed at all. So you can see here, the color display will be located in the second third of the sign. And then, like I said before, the name and then the logo located on the far top of the sign. So you can see here is the location of the sign. So here is the parking lot entrance and exit, which would be located right here. And then this does meet the minimum 5-foot setback requirement as well. And then likewise, it does also meet the 10-foot clear view requirement as well, needed for any entrances, exits off of this parking lot. So just to give an overview as far as the standards of review for the sign variance request. Now, the purpose of this freestanding sign is to better advertise events that's occurring at Holy Spirit for commuters off of Reserve Street. If it's folks driving their car, bicyclists, pedestrians, college students, you name it, off of Reserve Street. Now, given that this property is located along 4 separate street frontages, staff feels that not for a second freestanding sign, not allowing that would represent a practical difficulty or hardship in allowing the parish's marketing campaign to continue and flourish as they see fit. Now, secondly, setback, and as I mentioned before, clear view requirements are met. Now, a condition of approval that I'll talk about, then they'll be shown in subsequent slides, will be to require that the brightness of this color display to be lowered, to be dimmed during nighttime hours to reduce any glare or vision obstructions that may take place for any folks leaving the parking lot or trying to enter the parking lot. So they're not, for example, blinded by the location of the sign. Now, with this, meeting the setback requirement, meeting the clear view requirement, staff feels that this is this is rather unlikely to be detrimental to any neighboring property owners, and enough safeguards are in place to ensure that any detrimental impacts would be mitigated with this request. Now, third, other churches within the city do not face this type of issue as Holy Spirit, in that they're typically located within an interior lot, that they're not abutted by 4 different street frontages, for example. Now, with this being unique to this church and not occurring for other type of churches, parishes, etc., this is unique to this property alone and would meet this standard of review for granting the variance as well. And then likely granting the sign variance is not contrary to any of the objectives located within our city sign code, vis-a-vis that the setback requirements are met, height, sign area requirements are met, etc. So overall, staff does recommend approval of this sign variance, subject to the conditions shown on your screen, that the brightness of the color display is dimmed during the nighttime hours, as I alluded to before, that this proposed sign meets the 5-foot setback requirement and the height requirements, and then likewise it meets any applicable clear view requirements. Like I said, that the applicant does meet with this requirement, and then any building permits that are needed are obtained by our office. So with that, I can take on your questions.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the commissioners first? Okay. This is not a public hearing, but we welcome any testimony from anyone not a commissioner. Any thoughts from anyone outside the commission?
Yes. Hello again. This is Cindy Nabel, District 3.
Yes.
This is in my district, and I fully approve of them having a second sign. I can see why it's necessary, especially now that the university has now combined their church, basically, when it was St. Stan's, to now the Holy Spirit that belongs part of the UW students. I think it is really necessary to have it over there on that street also for the signage. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderperson. Anyone else? Okay, commissioners, thoughts, comments, or a motion?
Alder Kneebone here. I will move to approve based on staff recommendations.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Hoppy, I'd second.
Seconded by Hoppy. Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. The next couple of items are all related to each other. We'll start with item number 8, which is a request from the city of Stevens Point to purchase 17.35 acres in East Park Commerce Center with parcel ID identified in the agenda. Adam or Director Konoski, you want to take this one?
Sure.
And if you'd like, give an overview of everything, because we have the next 4 items that are all related.
Okay, perfect. So there's as Mayor just alluded to, a few moving parts to this request. The first request would be to acquire land in East Park Commerce Center. City staff has been working with Lineage Logistics, formerly known as Service Cold Storage, on yet another expansion to the east. This would be their 6th expansion. Earlier this year, phases 4 and phases 5 were before the Plan Commission for site plan review. And then we did sell the last property last December to Lineage. So rapid expansion in their world. And we're trying to help coordinate some of that because the city does have master purchase agreements on a number of the properties in the East Park Commerce Center as part of the shovel-ready certification that the city has through the WEDC. And so consistent with what state law requires, anytime the city acquires or disposes of a property, the Plan Commission has to review and provide guidance. So the first step would be to approve the purchase of 17.35 acres. Then the next action item would be to sell 15.6 acres. That is pretty much the entire parcel, less the EM Cops right-of-way. As you'll see in the site plan review, which I'll go over in a moment, they intend to use the remnant parcel south of EM Cops Drive as an overall stormwater management area. That has been an ongoing issue. Every time the Lineage has expanded, we've run into some challenges with how do we manage stormwater on the site. The existing retention ponds are sized appropriately for phases 1 through 3. 4 and 5 had their own retention ponds. Now with 6, there is a concern that capacity is getting pushed, and so this would include sale of that remnant parcel for stormwater retention purposes. If you look at the site plan itself, Adam, can you go to the site plan slide? There we go. You can see on your screen, existing phases 1 through 3 are completed. Those are on the western side of the property. Phase 4 was under construction, did get completed this last summer. Phase 5 is currently under construction. And phase 6 includes a new freezer space and then a new processing plant. So this will be a packaging plant for various raw goods, whether it be meat, meat or vegetables or anything of that nature. And so that is a little different. That does bring some unique job opportunities to the city as well. I don't believe I can disclose the number of jobs that it would be bringing, but it's fairly significant for the proposed expansion, which is why you see a number of parking spaces along the north side of the property. It would also include additional dock doors, 41 dock doors, an office space, and additional semi-dockage for the processing plant. There are a few things that city staff has identified through the review of this. Essentially, we're going to contingent this whole site plan approval on whether or not they acquire the land. That's fairly standard language when it comes to things of this nature. That they submit a landscaping plan consistent with the city's zoning code. Adam's done a nice job of outlining what we would typically like to see in a landscaping plan. That they provide a fire sprinkler plan. That they provide the fire hydrant plan. They've done all of this with past phases, so we have a lot of confidence that Lineage Logistics and Tittman Construction, which is their contractor, is going to provide all of this. Given the kind of odd timeline here, this is why we're doing the approval before we get a lot of this information. Important because of the proposed processing plan, the proposed packaging plant, that a sampling manhole is constructed near the EMCOPS right-of-way. We believe that the wastewater sampling will be appropriate, given just but there's a concern that, okay, let's say they're packaging, I don't know, I'm not a professional in the packaging world, but if they're packaging something and there's some materials that are going down the wastewater drains, that if it's an excess of certain chemical amounts, that we can go back to Lineage or whoever they're working with and say, hey, we've got some concerns. You're putting too much into our system, as an example. So having that manhole is important for the city's infrastructure as well.
For the commissioner's knowledge, we've done that on several occasions. Anybody with potential for a high strength or unique waste, as a matter of fact, we worked with Point Brewery to build a holding tank for any excess high strength waste, so we can send it down to the treatment facility in a manageable manner rather than having it all come in at once. So the city of Stevens Point actually has a direct line to the brewery.
Correct. There's no tap in my office though, so
no, we go the wrong way.
Right, yeah. So the additionally, really unique to this property is the stormwater retention pond on the south side of EMCOPS. We would require them to enter into a revocable occupancy easement. That's going to essentially allow them to put pipes underneath EMCOPS when the extension is constructed to be able to put their stormwater in that pond. And then, of course, identifying some of the occupancy requirements of having a different building occupancy requirements. So essentially from the zoning side of things, it definitely is consistent with setbacks, with parking, among other things. So would recommend approval on that as well. Again, Lineage has been a great tenant in the East Park Commerce Center. This is likely going to be their last expansion further east. Although the city has a fair amount of options on land further east than the proposed sale, we do have a future planned rail spur, and at some point we've got to get the siding track installed and then the spur to drop down into the park to make it a rail-ready site as well. We can't keep going further east with the future planned rail spur because there are some grade separation issues on the east side of the railroad track, which would make it too steep to put the rail system in. So with that, would answer any questions you folks might have. There are 3 separate action items that have to be done tonight: the acquisition, the sale, and the site plan as well.
Well, and the dedication of sewer easement. So we actually have 4. But they're all related, and I hope it's okay with the commissioners that I had the director explain the overall project to give you the big picture, and we'll still have to take each one of these separately. We'll take testimony separately and consider each component separately. But as the director said, Lineage Logistics, formerly Service Cold Storage, has been a tremendous partner, a great employer in the city. And the fact that they're working on now their 6th expansion just shows the success of the company, and we're glad to have them here in central Wisconsin. So the first item is the approval of the purchase of 17.35 acres by the city of Stevens Point in the East Park Commerce Center. We'll take that one first. Any comments from non-commissioners in regards to the land purchase? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Cindy,
For the
go
public?
ahead.
Okay, Cindy Nabel, District 3. I know we've done a lot of work with this company, but we've also provided some financing, and I'm just looking at this as, are we going to come out where we're not giving money at all again for this extra addition that they're doing? I just don't want to see that we've, again, assisted continuing expansion when we've done it, I think 2 for sure, maybe 3 times already. That's my question.
Right, and the land purchase really doesn't have anything to do with any proposed TIF incentive, should that come up. But I believe all of that falls under the existing contract, and there's not a separate TIF incentive that we're being requested.
Not within the land acquisition. That's a topic for the finance committee.
Right. The land acquisition, disposition, request for construction, all of those things are separate from any financial incentive. That would be consideration for the finance committee and then subsequently council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Not, commissioners, I would entertain any questions, comments that you have, or a motion.
Commissioner Hoppy, I would move approval of the proposed purchase.
Thank you. Is there a second for the purchase?
Haynes will second.
Haynes will second the purchase. Okay, again, we are only voting on the request of the city of Stevens Point to purchase 17.35 acres in East Park Commerce Center as it's identified in that overview. All those in favor of the purchase, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, that is approved. Item number 9 is a request from the city of Stevens Point to sell 15.6 acres of land in East Park Commerce Center with the parcel identified. As the director stated earlier, it's really the parcel that you just approved the purchase of, minus the roadway necessary for EM Cops Drive. And that purchase would go to Lineage Logistics. Are there any comments from non-commissioners?
Again, Cindy Nabel, District 3. And I'm sorry if I'm not understanding very well, but it sounds like, so we're going to buy this land, the taxpayers, whatever, our budget, we're going to buy the land and then sell it to them for the same amount.
Yes.
Correct. The funding for the land would come out of the TIF district. And similar with what we've done in the past is we essentially buy the land for $30,000 an acre. When we sell the land to Lineage, we sell it to them for $30,000 an acre.
So we don't try to make any profit at all on any of these business. Okay, I'm just surprised that, because we need to pay back so much things on other areas, and people have been talking about taxes and increases, that when we can make some money if we own something, we've given out to other places. I feel like we should try to get what would it get normally, what would they have to pay to get this property if we hadn't already purchased it.
Yeah,
right.
and I
on
could
all
say,
the person, it comes from our pre-negotiated deals with East Park Commerce Center. The actual return for the taxpayer comes in the form of property taxes and jobs. So there is a premium because this land currently is undeveloped ag land right now. By turning it into a commercial endeavor, the property taxes are different. The jobs that it creates also benefit the community. So the taxpayers get a direct revenue from the property taxes.
Property taxes,
The
okay.
community benefits because of additional employment. And of course, those people are then spending money, renting or buying houses, that sort of thing.
Sure. And that, I'm sorry, I didn't even think about that. We'd be getting property tax on this. So thank you.
Very welcome. Any other comments? Bringing it back to the commissioners. Commissioners, what are your wishes?
This is Cooper. I would move approval of the land sale as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Mayor, I'll second. Alder Kneebone.
Kneebone seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the sale signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Unanimous consent, that is approved. Item number 10 is a request from Lineage Logistics for a site plan review to construct a processing plant, freezer, office, and loading dock addition to an existing cold storage facility at 5700 EM Cops Drive. As we mentioned earlier, we had the director go over that. This is the proposed site plan with the addition there, the additional parking, the stormwater management, all of which is compliant with our current zoning code and plans for the future. The conditions were listed. Adam, you want to go to the conditions? There we go. They're rather extensive, but we're just making sure that everything is covered. As the director also mentioned, we have had very good compliance on the previous 5 portions from the same company, so we expect this one to go very smooth as well. Does anyone need a recap? Okay. Any comments from non-commissioners?
Sorry, Commissioner Hoppy, is this
Yes,
where
sir.
you talked about, and again, yeah, it's quite extensive. We were talking about the storm
Yep, stormwater
drain and things like that, but also the
manhole check.
the manhole check, yeah.
All of the conditions that
Are in there, okay.
the staff outlined. That's all in
In
there.
this. Okay, that's good.
Any other comments? Commissioners, I'll bring it back to you then.
Commissioner Hoppy, I'd move approval with the many staff recommendations.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Yeah, second. This
Seconded by
Commissioner
Arnson.
Arnson.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 11 is a request from the City of Stevens Point and Lineage Logistics for the dedication of a sanitary sewer easement adjacent to EM Cops Drive right-of-way. Again, this is all part of the same project. We are now just requesting approval for a dedication for sanitary sewer adjacent to EM Cops. Does anyone need any further clarification on that? Okay, if not, any questions or comments from non-commissioners?
Enable again, sorry,
Yes,
just I want to be sure I understand everything.
Absolutely.
District 3. So yes, I know we talked about doing this and they're already doing parts to that road on Cops Road for that, for this expansion that's been done already. Expansion, I think 4 and 5, was it?
Yeah. So Alder, what happened was when we sold the property to Lineage in December of 2019, when the city recorded the certified survey map, we made an indication that at a later date, an easement was to be negotiated between the city and Lineage for the construction of deep sewer. And what happened was when we started to go out and do the EM Cops extension, we went back to make sure that everything was in order, that we had all the proper easements, and noticed that, oh wait, nobody had ever actually put together that easement and recorded that easement with Lineage. And so this is just retroactively going back and saying, okay, here's a pretty standard sanitary sewer agreement for an easement that's 10 feet off of the EM Cops right of way. Everybody agrees that this is what this is for. And we've actually worked the Lineage pretty closely, and we've got everything lined up ready to go. The last step is Plan Commission and City Council approval. Again, when you do things like get easements or provide easements or acquire land or sell land, it's got to go through Plan Commission, City Council approval as well. So the next time around when we do the lot split, the CSM will be sure to do the easement right away so that we don't run into the same issue down the road.
Okay, and so that means that they'll be paying for putting the sewage in? Or
The TIF is paying for that, and it through increment generated by this project, Lineage is helping to pay for that cost. We have a 70% pay-go incentive with them on phases 1 through 3. a 50% pay-go incentive with them on phases 4 and 5. And so again, anything above and beyond that 70 or 50% goes back to the TIF to finance things like acquisition of property, road extensions, utility extensions as well. So while the TIF is paying for it, Lineage indirectly is paying for these costs.
So this is from our former deals that we made with them. And so now they've added on, and so they'll get this also wrapped into that package. Kind of. I guess it kind of bothers me that they thought they weren't going to go any further, and they asked us, first time, then a second time, and now the third time they're adding something on, which, they could be paying a portion at least of some of this, is my view, and not putting this again on to the TIF. All of this being part of the TIF, if they are going to add on, it would be nice to see some companies paying for their own work. But that's my opinion.
No, understood, Alderperson, and you're exactly right, which is the same reason that we do not provide a TIF incentive that exceeds the capacity of the city to collect revenue to maintain that infrastructure. So for all intents and purposes, the additional increment generated will go to pay back the cost of the utility installation or any roadway installation, and more importantly, the perpetual maintenance of that infrastructure. That's a policy we developed and have adhered to for at least 6 years now.
Very smart. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, or a motion? Commissioner
Kneebone.
Cooper? Oh, Kneebone?
We'll move approval.
Thank you.
I'll second. Cooper, I'll second.
Cooper, second. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 12 is the October and November 2020 monthly reports. Director, I will turn that over to you.
October 2020 was a good month for us, just in general. 1.4 million in declared valuation through 130 permits. Year over year, we are significantly up in declared valuation, and you'll especially see that starting in November, because we did issue the commercial permits for the Northside Yard project with a declared value of $23.6 million. So year over year, up over 50 million. So no complaints from community development. I hope no complaints from Corey either, but that's to be determined next budget cycle. In all, again, we've had a number of permits taken out for additions, remodeling, which is a good indicator through even the pandemic that folks are continuing to invest in their existing homes within the city. So with that, would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Otherwise, would recommend approval.
Any questions or comments for the director? Okay, then I would ask for a motion to accept the report and place it on file.
Commissioner Hoppy, I would move to accept both the October and November reports.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Arnson, second.
Seconded by Arnson. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? And that is approved. Thank you very much, Director Karnowski and your staff for providing that report and doing a bang-up job in light of the COVID pandemic. We're doing better than expected, I guess, in that regard. Last item is item number 13, and that's the director's report. And Director, I'll turn the floor over to you again.
Just a director's report included in your agenda packet. Again, notable changes of the finally occurring, the groundbreaking at Northside Yard. We've been a little banged and bruised as we try to get that project in the ground, but they are thankfully doing footing and foundation work. All the underground plumbing work, which is essentially the connection from the utilities in the streets to the property, has all been completed. And so you should start seeing or you should still continue to see a lot of work with that property, especially this winter. Reserve student housing, another project that we worked very diligently on, is complete and has full occupancy at this time. The Century Insurance Boutique Hotel is coming along very nice as well. And then if you've done any traveling on the I-39 corridor, you will notice the Delta Dental corporate headquarters there. Steel framing is currently under construction, so that's also moving along very well. Other things of notice, let's see, the convent development, the WIDA tax credit is due on the 15th. We are finishing up all the application work with the developer there, and we'll be submitting, fingers crossed, at the end of this week. So very hopeful that everything that this body has done and that the city council has done and the finance committee, I mean, everyone who's been involved in that project from the city side, the developer side, and of course the sisters side have done an excellent job working together to put together a really cohesive application for the WIDA tax credits. And we're hopeful that that will put us over the top and that we'll be able to obtain those tax credits. Special projects, TIFs 11, 12, and 13. I was on the phone with DOR today. They have the TIF unit of DOR, Department of Revenue, has reviewed and approved everything. It is now in the equalized value department to do final review. We should be receiving a letter indicating that those TIFs were finalized shortly, is what I was told today. So the city continues to work on strategic planning. We did have some minor hiccups. The company that we were working with actually broke away from their parent company, so we were working through some communication changes and some staffing changes, but the steering committee is back on track with those folks, and we're still very hopeful to have a product for the city to consider in winter or spring of 2021. So really exciting to see that come together. Other than that, everything else is within the director's report itself. Would be more than happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, would recommend approval.
Just one quick question or comment, rather, Director. If you could expound to anybody who's driven by, has seen a little bit of activity on the Belkey property.
Sure. So the Belkey house, which was on 3rd Street, did get demoed. And then some of the outbuildings are currently being deconstructed for reuse, actually on the Altenburg Dairy building. So that's part of the Wanta Live Work units. We continue to work with the Wantas. They are very close to finalizing some of their financing to continue pushing that project forward for a spring 2021 groundbreaking. We're very hopeful that we'll be able to do that. And if not, we'll have a cleaner site to find another party to redevelop it with. So
thank you very much. And I just want to emphasize too that while the house is gone, it wasn't just trashed and disposed of. Many people, I think there's probably 4 or 5 different people or groups that were repurposing any salvageable items from that property. You probably noticed a few pieces of even the siding, the wood siding that was removed and repurposed. So that's something we're going to be emphasizing a lot in the city, is rather than just tearing something down, we want to repurpose the materials. And we've been working with a couple of companies that do that very well. So, you know, its historic nature is not completely lost. It lives on in multiple other projects. Same thing's happening with the Fox Theater. And I know the same thing is going to happen with the Belkey Lumber / former hotel building that will be deconstructed in the near future as well. So congratulations again to the economic development team and staff, Ryan, Adam, and your entire staff. Thank you very much. I will make a motion that we approve the director's report, accept the director's report, and place it on file. I would need a second on that, please.
Arnson will second. Beat you, Mary.
We'll give Arnson the second. Any discussion?
Would I be able to ask a question yet on the public policy updates?
Sure. Go ahead, Alderperson.
Okay, thank you very much. Cindy Nabel, District 3. I just wanted a question about the traditional neighborhood overlay code amendment. When was that completed? I was out a little bit of the time, so I'm wondering, and if I'm able to get a copy of it, or?
Absolutely, we'll provide I'm sorry, Director, go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, that was approved at the November regular meeting of the Common Council. We can provide a copy of that code amendment too as well, Alder.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions before we adjourn? Commissioners, we probably won't see you before the next year, so have a happy holiday and a Merry Christmas, and we'll see the commissioners.
Mayor, we didn't vote on that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. All those in favor of accepting the director's report and placing it on file, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, now I take everything back. I don't care what kind of holiday you have. And, everyone have a great holiday, and we'll see you after the first of the year. Hopefully 2021 will be a little bit better than 2020 has been. Thank you, commissioners, and we'll adjourn at that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Videos of these meetings are available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.